We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. This is Cheryl from Dja country. Welcome everyone to Beyond 90, the podcast. My name is Cheryl Downs. My pronouns are she, her, and we're delighted to have you listening to the podcast tonight. Let's have a quick chat to the team that are on board. Stefan, how has your week been in football so far?
Oh, terrific. Thank you. I got to go to all sorts of footballing events and watch football on the weekend. So that's always a good way to have a weekend. So thank you. Hope yours was just as good.
Always good. Yes. Good week. Well, I mean, we'll talk about the Matildas result against Spain later, which puts a dampener on some things, but there are positives to look at and there's certainly plenty of discussion. Madge, how about you? How are you doing with your green shorts t-shirt, which is definitely a popular favorite?
Yeah, I'm going well. A little bit disappointed with the Matildas result, but you know, I'm always at least happy when we get some Matildas action. So happy there, and then got out to some local NPL this weekend.
Very good. And finally, Eric, we've got you on the podcast as well. Hopefully you've had a great weekend and a great week leading up to today.
Yeah, so I've been busy, called 3 games for NPL TV over the weekend, including my first ever doubleheader with Sydney Olympics women's team playing directly after their men's team. So that was interesting. And also in one of those games I called, a footballer from Cork scored. It's not the footballer from Cork, but a footballer from Cork. So that was good.
That sounds like a good week. Welcome, Dale. Perfect timing. We're just saying, how was your week?
Interesting. Big week. Lots of family stuff going on. But yeah, moved into my new place. As you can see, very Spartan in terms of decoration. This plant is almost certainly a fire hazard, but that's okay. I will attempt to remain safe.
Well, good to have everyone on the podcast, and we've got a big week to talk about in football with plenty of news. We'll start off with our traditional segment of the history aligning to the episode. So Matildas Cap number 102, Tracie McGovern. So there's not too much detail out there about Tracie these days. She debuted for the Matildas back in 1997 and was active across the with her final match being in 1999. I think for the 4 appearances that she had, she was subbed off the bench. 2 of them were against China and 2 were against Italy. She played the position of midfielder or defender, depending on which way you were looking at it. And she also made 100 appearances for the Newcastle Jets. Now, when I say that, I think it's Newcastle Jets in the NPL kind of leagues or the state leagues, as opposed to Newcastle Jets, the A-League women's team. She was also the founder of the Australian sportswoman.com.au, which is a site similar to, I don't know what Beyond 90 might be in and around football, but it's across more sports. It doesn't look like it's had a lot of activity recently, but go off and have a look. So congratulations to Tracie McGovern, cap number 102. Always pleased to have a Matilda who's been part of the history. Let's talk about hot topics. This week, I think it's this week, depending on trying to get my dates in my head working, but the new FIFA rankings were announced. So I think it was on or around the 19th of June. The only changes that we've seen in the top 10, the Netherlands have jumped up 1 spot and Germany has dropped down 1 spot. So we still have the US on top, Sweden, France, then followed by the Netherlands, then Germany. Rounding out the bottom 5 of that 10 is Canada, who are very, very close to 5th position, I must say. So they'd be excited about that. Spain, England, Brazil, and Korea, or DPR Korea. So Australia is still in 12th, no change there. I think they went up 1 point something points, but they are a little way off from getting back into the top 10. No surprises, I'm sure. Netherlands continue to play really, really well. Spain held their position, but I think they did grab a bunch more points. So yeah, that top 10 is really, really solid and exciting.
Yeah, I think I just was thinking, I'm not sure. I'm sure there'll be another update after the Euros.
There has to be, surely.
Quarterly.
Yeah, and then before the draw for the World Cup. So I think that should be interesting to see if there's any movement, because you would think the Euro should be a fairly highly weighted tournament as well for those
You're
teams
exactly right.
in the top there.
Where's Lucky France when you need him?
Yeah, I was just about to
reach
say,
out to
friend
him.
of the show.
Yep. Terrific. In other news, the Women's Champions League qualifier draw has been announced as well. I don't know whether or not, Dale, you want to have a go at that one. I think you announced it to us at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. There's it's done similarly to how it would have been done last year. So teams are grouped into groups of 4, depending on teams that have qualified for this part of the tournament. A bunch into groups of 4. There are 2 types of groups. There are champions groups, so obviously teams that have won their respective leagues, and then there's what's called the league path, which is generally speaking either first or second or either second or third placed teams in their respective leagues. So each group is drawn into a semi-final, and then obviously the winners go through to the final. There are a few pretty tasty kind of games coming up. Juventus have a fairly easy group, so that should be quite. I can't really see them not going through. But in terms of the league path, we've got Glasgow City playing Roma, and Paris FC versus Servette, home team of Tessa Tamplin, and only one of those teams can go through to the Champions League proper. Then in Group 2, you've got Minsk versus Slovatsko, former team of the one and only Grace Gill. They also have in the group Breidablik and Rosenborg from Norway. Group 3 is Ajax versus Kristianstad from Sweden, Fortuna Hearing and Eintracht Frankfurt from Germany. So winners are already facing off against each other there. And then the last group is Real Madrid and Sturm Graz, and Manchester City and Tomiris Turan from Kazakhstan. So that's going to be an interesting trip. Manchester City to Kazakhstan might be one of the longest trips in European football. But yeah, there's a few teams that have got buys, obviously due to what's going on in Russia and Ukraine at the moment. One of which is home team of Vesna Milivojevic, Spartak Subotica of Serbia. So those games are going to be played, I believe, in August. And then the second, so late August. And then the draw proper is the 1st of September. First round... so those teams play off, and then obviously they go through the group stage. Group stage draw is the 3rd of October. And then we kind of... Group stage is October, November, December. So it should be pretty interesting. I will have a preview of that coming out soon. Obviously, there will be a lot of Australians involved, and I will try and look through all of them.
Exciting. Very exciting. Thank you very much, Dale. Talking about exciting, and I'm not sure how excited people got. I was hoping to see a brilliant match between the Matildas and Spain, which was probably one of the biggest pieces of news which has come out across the last couple of days. And one of the reasons I wanted to see that is I really wanted to see how good Spain were. And I don't think we saw that. You can look at the scoreline and say, 7-0, that's a pretty good scoreline. They looked really good. But I don't think we saw them at their best. And that was in part due to the way that the Matildas played, or maybe were encouraged to play defensively. But keen to hear everyone's thoughts on this. And I might start with Eric, put you on the spot and get your thoughts on it. And then we'll go around.
Interesting. Going first with the man who's clearly going to talk about another national team later on. But sure, I'll give it my best shot. So I think of course, this is a very after the fact judgment, but I am wondering about the point you raised in an earlier pod, Cheryl, about could there have been better planning in terms of timing the rest period for, shall we say, the first choice Matildas, so that it doesn't coincide with us playing Spain away from home on an interesting pitch, by the way, in Huelva. But anyway, that's done, and I think it's important to remember that just because there's 53 nations in Europe doesn't mean all of them are available for a game in a particular window. But, good to see. It's always good to see debuts, especially big congratulations to Taylor Ray after, it's a well-told story, 2 ACL injuries and the worst worst time COVID positive test imaginable, which probably knocked her out of the Asian Cup. So she was on. Jamila Rankin is a debut. Even though she's so young, I feel like it's a little bit overdue given how well she's played for Brisbane Roar and youth national teams. So, I mean, those are the positives. But yes, it was interesting, to see the gap against, as you said, Cheryl, a Spain team that was probably not anywhere near top year.
Madge, your thoughts? You were up and you probably had some halftime banter with the Matildas active as well. What were your thoughts? And maybe I don't know if you're allowed to share any of the thoughts that seemed to come through on the active support gas bagging.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think at halftime, well, actually, no, I'll probably start by saying I didn't have huge expectations going into this game.
Neither did I.
So I think going into the game, I wouldn't have been surprised with a 7-0 result. But going into halftime, I think we were actually quite positive, only being 1-0 down, playing very defensively and sort of only making a couple of attacking runs. I think people thought that, defensively we were sort of going okay. We were keeping disciplined sort of with our line, and Spain were sort of offside a lot, but at least we were disciplined and not giving them those opportunities to cut through the line there. But and we thought maybe just the forward line wasn't really connecting with the midfield particularly well. There were a couple of good passes there through to Crummer and Gilnick, but Spain really just did have us on the back foot for most of the game. I think for me the biggest positive out of the game, I thought Tegan Micah was great in the first half, and really happy with how Charlie Grant went with really getting that full game. I don't think she was taken off in the absence of Ellie Carpenter. So I think that's a great positive, knowing that she really stood up strong against great opposition. I think that gives us good heart that when the top tier players come back into the team, Charlie's up to the standard there for international football. Speaking about Taylor Ray, when she came on, I thought she did really well. I think she was a good spark in a bit of a scary second half. And then from Spain's point of view, I mean, there were just some really quality goals. I mean, there was some pretty awful defending from the Matildas as well, but there were a couple of just pearler strikes from Spain as well that, sure, I mean, you may have wanted your defenders to close down the space a bit more, but they were quickly and beautifully taken goals on a few occasions.
There's plenty more to say. I'm going to give Stefan an opportunity, and of course Dale as well. But Stefan, did you find some positives as well out of the game? And what was the difference between the first half and the second half, given the significant change in scoreline?
Yeah, definitely did also see some positives, as some of the ones that Madge has just mentioned. Charlie stepping up was terrific. I thought Minnie pretty much outshone Emily Van Egmond as the playmaker, in the playmaker type role, especially in the first half hour. She was like our attacking outlet, I think, for that first half hour before that sort of side of our game fell away a bit. But she can be very happy, I think, with her role. As far as what happened at half time, because I think I agree with Madge. We would have been probably quite pleasantly surprised by the half-time score and the way we dealt with it. But the cohesion changed with the substitutes during the second half. And I think Spain had a chat at half-time about how they were going to approach their attack to us in the second half. They introduced more variety, I found. They did some delivery from deeper, which trying to catch us out before we got set in the back line. And they also did some aerial delivery, which was very effective for them in the second half. So I think a combination of the cohesion changes and the different angles of attack that they put on us had quite a beneficial effect to them. But yeah, definitely saw some good things there though as well, things that we can take into the next game. So.
good opportunity for the team to learn from a bunch of those things. Dale, your thoughts about the game? What was the potential biggest learning that you think the Matildas may have taken out of that? What did you learn from watching how we played and how Spain played? I mean, aerially was a really good point. I didn't think that we would be under so much pressure or it would be so damaging for us.
I'd agree with that. I think that one of the things that we as a football nation have had as a struggle for a while, in my opinion at least, is this concept of playing the right ball technically. And I think that this game, more than most that I've watched, has shown that, well, it showed that the right ball is the one that works. It doesn't matter whether it's aerial, sideways, along the ground, a 60-yard raking pass. The ball that works is the right pass. And I think that the biggest thing that we were schooled by is just like, obviously I've never seen, I mean, in probably the last 10 years, if not longer, the Matildas be completely outpossessed like they were. And obviously they were running around, chasing the ball takes it out of you, of course, which I think led to a lot of those goals just from poor decision making, as you were saying. Yes, some of them were very good, but there were also a few, people looking at the ball instead of looking at their runners. But as I said, I think the thing that I took most out of this was that Spain's midfield just completely ran the game. I just had a quick look at the touches, and Bon Mati and their other midfielder, Patri's like control of the center of the park was just unbelievable. As you said, a lot of the passes, it was almost like every pass was a winner. And because we didn't have the opportunity to kind of break back against that, like we would if we had, for example, a first choice team, I think we still would have got beat. Like, Spain are a very good team, but I don't feel like it would have been as bad as it was. Just because we have that outlet of players that we can kind of play on the break. Seeing Courtney Viner, Tamika Yallop playing as wingbacks gave me very strange. Was very strange to watch. Felt a bit Canberra United a couple of years ago.
Yes.
But
also
yeah,
at that time, especially that early, so you do wonder if you're still dreaming. Stuff like that. You see players in certain positions.
And you can also tell Courtney's not used to playing it as well. Courtney Vine got vined at one point.
Oh, yes. Yes.
But I think, as I said, the biggest takeaway for me was that it's all well and good to kind of play to a philosophy and, we want to play the Dutch model, or we have a 4-3-3, or however you want to play. But I think that the right pass is the one that works. And I think that we need to be more comfortable with that if we want to play over the top like we have in the past and try and target, like, whether they have a shorter defensive line or whether they're incapable of dealing with crosses that come from deep or whatever it is. We have to be comfortable with that. And I think that Spain were comfortable with melding the way that they use their possession to what were Australia's perceived weaknesses, and they capitalized from that on a number of occasions.
Thank you. I'll talk to two key points of my own just to keep it short and sweet. I think the first one was there was a decision at some point, or it seemed to be the case, that we started playing out from the back. And given how challenging it was for us to string any possession together, I thought that was a really interesting decision. I'm not saying if it's a good or a bad one, but yeah, it didn't necessarily help us, but playing out in other ways didn't help us either. So that was really interesting. And then the other thing was the off the field logic and reasoning for this game with this team and the opportunities that could be learned. And I've seen social media around it. I think Joey Peters had some really good things to say. And a lot of this has been about getting more players, not just the top 11, but more players and depth of players access to elite football minutes. And I'm not an expert, but sure, I agree with what they're saying. I think the gap for me is the gap from where they've been having their minutes to that elite football minutes. And there must be a step in between. To my mind, it's absolutely agree with the philosophy of getting them more game time at that level. But we talked off air just a moment ago about How do we get to the point where we're qualifying for U17 and U20 Women's World Cups? How do we get to the point where we're playing those kind of games, maybe elite minutes, but start them against someone different than Spain? I don't know. But yes, now that those players have now seen how good you have to be to level up with Spain and potentially at some point beat Spain. But I just think the gap was a big stretch. And I think there's been a little bit of conversation around it's now given us more questions than answers. But I think that's still valuable to say we cannot compete with those nations based on the way that we're currently delivering our football in Australia. That might be a big question, but that gives us an understanding of, okay, go off and build a pathway, or go off and understand the pathway in a different way. So I was, as a fan, I struggled with the game, with the concept of the game before the game. I wasn't as excited as normal because it's, normally you feel like you're in with a chance. You've got the players who are going to have great learning opportunities. And I did struggle with this one, but I think that the team played well, given the circumstances. And I don't want to get into any conversations around the Matildas as a brand aren't good. And that's what we might see some of the fans who are just fans for the result, as opposed to, and I think, Madge, you said it again off air, we're more than just about the result. We're about the team and supporting the team. And sometimes the result isn't good. So getting used to winning is a great thing. And you might be like the US and you win more than you lose, but this is a development and a learning opportunity. Anyway, I've talked a lot. Any other thoughts from anyone? Because I just babbled on.
Andy Harper socks.
I was thanking you on Twitter Spaces, so I didn't have to listen to Andy. But I did see some comments again that, like, he was asking questions that just showed that he hasn't been paying attention to what the team's been doing for the last year. Questioning, why they weren't selecting these players a year ago. Well, they were only just getting together after COVID. So
yeah, I was going to say also we were in the middle of an Olympics, so there's that.
Yeah. So poor man's Mark Bosnich, basically. So,
I completely agree about needing more opportunity for high quality play, for not just the typical 11 that we would expect to go to major tournaments, but qualifying for youth tournaments. I think putting in the team that we're putting to the AFF tournament is fantastic. We probably need to start doing more of that. And by the
way, that just reminds me, they're going to announce that soon.
Yeah, well,
tournament starts on 4th of July.
It's happening pretty quick. So
I would appreciate knowing who's going to the Philippines.
Maybe after the Portugal game, because some of those players are, I guess, probably going to be almost going straight back to that camp. But from a fan perspective as well, I think it's also about being realistic about our expectations of players. We follow the dub really closely, and we love our players in the dub, and everyone has their favourite local player that they want to get in the Matildas team. And then you get a game like this where, after people have been calling for it, giving the new players opportunities, and they get that opportunity, albeit it's against Spain. But Spain aren't, there are 9 other teams in the top 10 teams in the world that we want to be able to compete with. So they're not the only really tough team that we want to be able to compete with. So seeing where our current structures have gotten us, I think it should give fans a bit of pause about their own expectations of where our level is at. Expecting miracles from our players just because we love them and that's what we're used to seeing in the dub, and then expecting them to be able to perform at the level when they haven't been given those pathways is really unfair. And I get a little bit depressed at the constant negativity, when I'm sure the Matildas camp going into this game would have been setting realistic expectations of their performance.
Yep. Is an element of it, and we haven't talked about the coaching side of it, we've talked a lot about the players, but is this Tony Gustafsson's way of accelerating learning and development within the scope of what he can? Because 2023 is a fixed date, hopefully hopefully there's no more COVID or anything like that, but the World Cup is a fixed date. So we can only accelerate and get us better, improve as much as we can during that time frame. And then the development pathways are another different situation.
I think that's a good point. And I don't think that's one that a lot of people, I don't think that's one that's been particularly well articulated. Like if you look at the last World Cup, we went into that tournament obviously without Laura Brock pulling out. I think that probably most fans, maybe aside from Mary Fowler, because we didn't know whether she was actually going to go to the tournament, I think most fans who watched more than half the season of the Dub would have been able to pick 20 of the 23 players that went to that tournament. And now we're looking at like this team, there's probably like 8 guaranteed players at the moment out of a potential 26 with your 3 train-ons. So I think the point that you make around trying to accelerate how much we know about these players in an international sense, but also how much those players know about international football, I think this is really the only way that we're able to do that, because we're not like the United States in that we don't host our own tournaments. We don't have an Asian Cup every year. We don't have like a Gold Cup. We haven't sent a team to Algarve. We're only able to pull the players out for a certain number of games in a certain number of fixtures. And also there's obviously the resourcing side of things where you have, not to dunk on anyone, but like Football Australia only has a certain amount of money that they can organize tournaments and organize games with. Whereas, you've got European and North American countries that, have like the federations have a significantly bigger pot to play with. I think the players like, for example, bringing Larissa Crummer back in to just see what she's got, even though to my knowledge, she's been playing in the Queensland Women's Premier League.
With Kapalaba.
With Kapalaba. You've got Princess Abini, who's been playing for Apia. You've got a lot of these players who have been in Australia. The step up from playing NPL to then playing against players who play in literally the second best team in Europe at the moment. Most of the Spanish team played in the Champions League final is like, it's not even going from like crawling to running. It's like going from crawling to being shot out of escape velocity. So I think that this is the only way that we can accelerate that. It's, if you want to grow culture in a biological sense, you have to keep it at a positive temperature where it can grow quickly. Unfortunately for us, the Matildas, the yogurt, for want of a word, that is the Matildas, has been kept in the fridge. And now we're trying to grow more yogurt, and it takes time to grow the yogurt unless you put it in an incubator. These games are the incubator. And if we want to have good yogurt going into the World Cup, you've got to get that milk up to temperature and make sure that it ferments and all that kind of stuff.
Possibly one of the weirdest analogies ever, but we'll have to use that as the title for the podcast.
If you want to grow a chicken, you can't keep it cold. You've got to keep the eggs in the incubator and hope that the chickens come out okay.
All right, next game, Wednesday morning, Australian Eastern Standard Time. Is it the same time, 5:30 or 6 a.m. or something or other like that?
Check the trusty live score app and hope that it is right. Because it's the app that reminded me that it was 6 a.m., not 5:30.
We'll let Eric do that.
Not 6:30.
Because they're on the same 6 a.m. at Estadio Antonio Coimbra de Morcha.
All right, so the Matildas ranked 12th in the world. Ranking is relative because we are not playing our starting 11 who would enable us to maybe play at that level against Portugal, who are ranked 29th in the world. Quick thoughts around what we might expect differently from that game. One of those thoughts might be around the starting 11. One of those thoughts might be around results and whatnot. Eric, your thoughts? Or I made you go first last time, so you can go first again.
Cap Matilda McNamara. That's all.
Thank you.
Good thought.
I just think for our own sanity, our own players' sanity, we want to go out there and play with a bit more freedom and with a license to attack, because we don't want to have another game, I think, where we are so restricted again in holding to our defensive pattern. We want to get that enjoyment of going forward and being an attacking force again in this one, and hopefully lifting the spirits of the squad that way. So that's my thought.
Yes,
Well, also,
I was going to say
Portugal and Spain, though. Sorry. But,
Very true.
But exactly going on from that point, Stefan, I think I'd probably like to see Jacinta Galabata-Arachie
nice.
get a start, or at least some significant minutes to see another creative player in the attacking sense. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'd also like to see if lovely hardworking kid manager can actually fit Galabata-Arachie on the back.
Oh,
of
she's
one of our
definitely
jerseys.
going with Jacinta on the back of her shirts.
Oh.
Matilda and Jacinta.
I
Yes.
have a feeling that they imagine it when you would go to Nike and be like, okay, we need the thinnest letters available. How thin can you make them? And they just come back and they look. Her jersey would look like a barcode.
So give me what Jan Benahur of Hesseling had back in the day. That's what I need. I want a circle of text.
Yes.
I got up early for the Spain game and made Spanish hot chocolate. I made my churros the night before. They were a bit of a disaster. I might be making some Portuguese custard tarts tomorrow morning.
Where
Holy
would you
cow.
put your churros on a scale of Spain to the Matildas?
Madge, you're going to have fun at the AFF tournament.
They were definitely Matildas. I did it because in the Asian Cup, I themed my food
nice.
every game except the South Korea game. So I thought it may have been my fault that I didn't get some Korean food for that game. But the Spain result has shown that it makes zero difference.
I love it. We're now a cooking show. Dale, did we get your thoughts on the game as well? What do you think the score might be? And the score is one part of the conversation. I get that.
Funnily enough, the last time we played Portugal, they beat us.
Yeah, 2-1.
In 2018. Goal for us, courtesy of W League stalwart Caitlin Cooper. So that will set the mind racing. I think Stefan's right. I'd love to see us play like a front four. And just, why not? It's a friendly. And we should play fun football. What will the score be? I think it'll be 4-3 to Australia.
Oof. Okay, got a bit of a goal fest.
That'll be a wake-up call for Wednesday morning.
Yes.
All right, well, everyone, good luck for Wednesday morning watching that game. Sorry, Dale, you wanted to say something else?
No, I was going to say, the point that you're making around Tegan Micah, I think Tegan Micah probably Matilda's number one at this stage. I don't think there's much argument around that at this point.
Definitely makes you feel confident, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Although has had some injuries and hopefully they are managing her load as well. It doesn't, load is, we've obviously seen Sam Kerr, Steph Catley, Ellie Carpenter for different reasons, Mary Fowler, lots of players not available for these two tournaments because of load, because they're at, super, super elite levels.
Yeah.
There's no difference to the level of football that Tegan Micah has been playing and the volume of football that she's been playing as well. But some players thrive under more game time, but the result is not always seen immediately. And I know a little while ago, I think it was Alana Kennedy had played pretty much the most football of any footballer out there, or certainly for the Matildas. And she was playing her best football at the time. And when she's playing less, maybe, she doesn't play absolutely her best, but there's other factors that go into that. Well,
incumbency is critical in the goalkeeping ranks as well.
Absolutely. All right, we'll jump into some more news as well and just keep moving along. So the junior Matildas have had a training camp and squad announced. Eric, I'm going to throw to you on this one if you're happy.
Sure. Let me just load that link. And it's always fun with my internet. But firstly, I actually called Football New South Wales Institute in a Thursday night catch-up game, which is a good chance to see some of these players, especially the highly rated forward Sienna Silvestre from Football New South Wales Institute, who we'll get onto in a bit, who's kind of a left-footed attacking player, starved of service in the game I called her, but quite the opposite happened on Sunday, which we'll get to later. But other names that catch the eye, Chloe Willander, a defender from the Newcastle Jets Academy, who's received a number of call-ups and good. The player I'm really excited to see, Megan Mifsud, who her early provisional nickname is the Maltese Polydoran for the way she goes up and down the right side of the field from right back. And so she was, like incredible engine and very energetic and didn't mind mixing it physically with older opponents. And she was up against Deborah Ann Delharp and all things told did a reasonable job. So who else is there? Oh, yes, Ella Abdulmasih. Fun story I heard about her when she was playing futsal with boys. She scored 4 goals in a game. Yeah, I mean, the other people might have to know something about these players first. But so Ella Abdulmasih, playing futsal with boys, scored 4 goals in a game. And after every goal, she celebrated in a boy's face. And that's the kind of energy we need in our national teams.
Perfect. Good celebrations. Very, very important. Very little to celebrate sometimes. Let's talk about Dub news. Season 15, we've got some signings. This puts Stefan in a very happy mood.
Sure does. Ilijoski signed on this morning for 2 more seasons. So really good news, along with the signing last week of Nikki Flannery, also for 2 seasons. So that's, I think...
It's intent.
Yeah, it is. It's real intent about cohesion. I think we talked about this a bit last week. I hope to see it continue with the other signings, and also not just the Canberra locals. Hopefully they've got their eye on some additions to the squad who they want to build into the cohesion along with the Canberra players. But yeah, Emma's much loved by the squad and by the town already in her second, after 2 seasons at the left back, where she's pretty much started every game, I think, since being introduced to the team. So yeah, that's all good news stories for us, for the team in green with that one.
Okay. Still a while away. We haven't got the fixtures. We don't know when things are happening. We do expect it will be a longer season, but that's not the first time I've ever said that. Let's go around the world.
We don't know exactly how many teams are in the league. We know it's going to be at least 11, but...
That's true. Speaking of which, our amazing graphics, elite level graphics guy, Michael, has jumped back on deck and updated our squads page with a Western United little
Lovely
graphic
stuff
there as well. So thank you very much, as well as a better feature image, because mine was a scrappy thing that I put together on Canva. So thank you, Michael, for saving me from more embarrassment of my graphics skills. So women's international football, because it is a FIFA window, there've been a number of games. We won't talk about all of them, but we certainly wanted to talk about a couple of key games. I'll just whiz through a couple of the results, but please talk to them as you wish. Starting from the bottom-ish, England v the Netherlands 5-1. I think that's quite a big result. I didn't see the game. I have not seen highlights. Dale, I think you're potentially one of the people who might be across it a little bit better than me, at least.
I've only seen the highlights as well, but this game was extremely confusing for somebody who is colorblind.
Yes.
England
what happened?
wearing like a Dayglow red jersey.
Oh, no.
And
Foxy colours.
the Netherlands in white. And I was like, oh, the Netherlands are playing so... I don't know about this shade of orange, but this is going well. And then the score graphic kept changing the wrong way, and I was very confused. If you were the Dutch in this situation, you wouldn't be hitting the panic button, but you'd be finding where it's located at this point. I'll be very interested to see how this looks going into the European Championship coming up. But yeah, really good performance by England. And I think that they should be fined for wearing those jerseys. That is my humble opinion.
Okay, fines going out. We don't have fines in our Queens, Kings, Jokers, etc. of the week, but maybe fines are appropriate as well. Another interesting match, Canada had a 0-0 draw against Korea, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if other people think that's interesting. And then the final one that I'll throw out there, and maybe Eric wants to talk to some of the rest of them as well. Denmark had a 2-1 victory over Brazil. Again, interesting to see, is there a change in play of where football is going? And Brazil have had documented struggles with how they've been progressing. I think next week or in a couple of days, I think Brazil are actually playing Sweden as well, which would be a big game because that's got Pia Sundhage. Will have some sort of allegiance. Well, she won't have any allegiance challenges. I'm sure she knows squarely where she sits. Eric, did you want to go through other conversations, other results?
Sure. So as the Philippines women's national team world tour goes on, and on the back of them playing the Republic of Ireland in a Turkish resort of all places last week, and losing by 1-0. So now they played 2 games against Bosnia and Herzegovina in Slovenia. The Philippines won both of them, so winning the first one 3-0 fairly comfortably, and then some drama in the second game, losing 1-0 in the 85th minute before scoring 2 late goals to pull a 2-1 victory out of the fire. And the goal coming, the equalizing goal coming from new Red Star Belgrade signing Quinley Quezada, and the winning goal coming from Katrina Guiu, who plays somewhere in a Nordic country, possibly with Patea. Stefan,
I was going to throw to Stefan as well for the other result that we've got listed on there.
Yeah, this was a good one. Norway 2, New Zealand 0. Played in Norway. If you've got access to Optus Sport, I recommend have you look at this one. I watched the entire game, and as much for curiosity about how New Zealand would go against the 11th ranked Norway, but also seeing the full Norwegian squad in its beauty and might. And yeah, it was very interesting. I think Jitka Klimkova, the New Zealand coach, will be quite pleased, I think, after all this. It was 1-0 pretty much at full time. The second goal came in the 95th minute. Ada Hegerberg got the first goal for Norway after about half an hour or so with a left foot cracker from just outside the box. Just stepped and turned, and then just belted it with the left foot. The stats were all 2-1 pretty much to Norway's way, so possession, shots on goal, that sort of thing. But it was quite an open game in some ways, and New Zealand had their chances. So Paige Satchell, who played here in Canberra, had a really good game. She had a headed goal narrowly disallowed for offside, and of course it was 1-0 at that stage. So that was a big moment in the game. Michaela Moore had a very good game for New Zealand, but I think my player of the match for New Zealand, at least, was the goalkeeper Victoria Essen. Did a wonderful job keeping Norway out for much of the game. So, but really, really good to see how Norway is set up with all the talent in their squad and how they move the ball around. So yeah, I mean, it's a nice tune-up for them as well. Get some confidence, and they probably had a harder game than they were possibly anticipating. So yeah, worth a look.
Yes, and also definitely worth a look, at least on New Zealand football social media. I'm looking at their tweet right now to see Jitka Klimkova's lovely first touch of a very loose Norwegian diagonal. Went into the New Zealand technical area. She killed the ball dead, and Jitka still got it.
Very nice.
I'll put that in the show notes.
Thank you. Let's talk Euros as well. I know that we tend to keep our focus on Australian women's football and where the Australian women are playing in and around the world, but the Euros are a massive tournament in my mind, and something that I'd love to be there one day. But when you try and understand how important it is to the women's football community, you look at the top 10, 6 of the nations who are in the top 10 are actually part of the UEFA Confederation. So it is a massive tournament. It's not like the Olympics where only a couple of them might be able to qualify and get to go to that. This is going to be some absolutely top-rate football. Starts on the 7th of July, which I think is, 10 days away.
Mm-hmm.
Madge, I'm assuming that you'll be watching and maybe hosting some Twitter spaces with Matildas active talking about non-Matildas, or am I wrong in that? You'll be making churros anyway.
Australian representative team is in a tournament at the same time. So
well, it's not Eurovision. So
yeah.
But I'm absolutely excited. I think what you're saying about having so many quality teams, it means that you get like great games from the get-go. There's really quality teams in those groups immediately from the rounds, and it's always a really exciting tournament. Probably the only downside has been some criticism of the organisation in the UK around stadiums that a lot of the games are being played at, which is really disappointing, because if you look at how excited Australia and New Zealand are about the opportunity for the World Cup down under, I don't understand why the English FA aren't crawling out of their skins to just promote this tournament that will have such quality. They should be pumping it from every opportunity that they can. So, but I'm sure it'll still be a fantastic. I'm sure all those big games that England are involved with will still be big. But let's hope that we see that across the board.
Thoughts from the rest of the gang?
Let me just have a look at these.
Yeah, I was gonna say this. The good thing about these tournaments, specifically in Europe, obviously, the men's Euro is now a 2014 tournament, but the women's tournament's still only 16 teams. Is there's not a lot of fat in these games. Like there's no real. I mean, easy beat is probably a bit disrespectful, but like if you look through the list of teams, I don't think there's a nation that doesn't deserve to be there. Like, you know, yes, you might look at, say, Group C and you think, oh, well, the Netherlands and Sweden should do that pretty easily. But also, like, Portugal and Switzerland, like, they're no mugs. Group D is going to be a cracker. You've got Belgium, France, Iceland, and Italy. Really looking forward to that one. And yeah, it's just going to be super, super interesting. As you mentioned earlier, Cheryl, these, because they're tournament fixtures, they count. I think they're 3 times as valuable as a friendly in terms of ranking points. So, and the further you progress in the tournament, the more your matches are worth. Which I know we're a long way out from the draw at this stage, but you'd think that surely, aside from the silverware that's on offer, teams will be wanting to do as well as possible going into like a World Cup year. But yeah, it's going to be super, super interesting. As you mentioned earlier, Stefan, like I think there's a lot of unknowns about this. Norway going into a competition with Hegberg, Hansen, Maren Mjelde still there. You've got Germany, who have been a little bit on the spin lately. Spain, who are obviously fresh off spanking us. And then, you know, you've got kind of Northern Ireland, who have never been to a major tournament before. You've got France, who knows what's going to happen to them, because they are just all over the place at the moment.
Always in major tournaments, surely.
They really don't like each other at the moment. Yeah, there's a whole lot going on. It's going to be really interesting. Fairly sure that it's available to watch on a certain carrier.
Oh yeah,
I think it's on Optus Sport. There are other carriers available. But yes,
sign
definitely
up for a trial if you need to,
for
or
sure.
something or other, because when I think when I think back to 2018, the semi-final, I think, between the Netherlands and England, I think, was a top game, and the final was definitely a top game. So one of the reasons to watch this is because you love football, or you love women's football, and I think it's an absolutely top opportunity to see some amazing football. And we do have Australia playing in another tournament, but I think that, no disrespect, I think this will be an absolute next level of football out there.
Oh yeah.
So highly recommend people to watch it, get on board, listen to it, watch the highlights. Hopefully there's some really good coverage. In fact, talking about coverage, one thing I did notice about the match between Australia and Spain, I didn't think the ground was that great, but I didn't think the coverage, the broadcast, was that good either. Not talking about our local presenters or anything. I know that they were taking an international feed, but half the time I couldn't tell who was out there, apart from knowing the particular gate or of different players. Anyway, that's my highlight and recommendation for people. Let's talk about state football. We'll start off with ACT.
Alrighty. Top of the league clash this last weekend was between Canberra Olympic at their home ground against Canberra, Croatia. Ended up being a 1-1 draw, and the game unfortunately had a halt in proceedings for about half an hour, when very well respected midfielder for Canberra, Croatia, Krista Hagen, fell on her elbow and dislocated her shoulder. So we hope that she's doing okay. She's a key player for Canberra, Croatia. Scoring for Canberra, Croatia in that game was Bella Barrick, and Vanessa Ryan got one back about 6 minutes later, and that was 1 versus 2, and that leaves the teams in the same position, obviously on the ladder. Over at Wagga and Gissing Oval, it was a 2-4 win to Gungahlin United, a 4-2 win. Wagga scored 2 goals, so they haven't scored that many of that this year, so that will be welcome. Goals to Megan Castle and Tamara Cochran, and there was a double for Sharon Chow for Gungahlin United, and also goals to Nat DeMarco and Kasha McGlashan. I was at Canberra 2 for the game between Tuggeranong United and West Canberra Wanderers, which was an interesting one to be at, because West Canberra had come off a 0-0 draw against bottom-placed Wagga the week before, despite being third position on the ladder. And I think Tuggeranong United were probably looking to test the waters there to see if they could do something against a team that was perhaps not playing as well as they could. And as it turned out, both teams were probably getting a little bit of what they're after in this game. So West Canberra responded well in the first half and were 2-0 up at half time with both goals to Tara Cannon. And in the second half, Tuggeranong United came out and pulled 2 back and were pressurising pretty strongly for the winner towards the end of the game. So goals there to Tuggeranong for Cara Cerruti, who had a really top game in midfield, and also substitute Ariana Sturgio. And as mentioned, Tara Cannon got both goals for West Canberra Wanderers. That'll be the write-up this week. And finally, the game between CUA, so the Academy, and Belcon United was postponed due to referee illness in the league.
So does Tara Cannon have a very powerful shot, Stefan?
She does, yes.
Excellent. Nominative determinism at its finest.
Yep. She scored a number of goals from 30 yards out. She's quite well known for that.
Excellent.
Take it away, Dale and Eric on New South Wales.
Eric?
Me first? Okay. So big, it's very busy with a couple of catch-up games being played midweek in addition to the normal 6 games on Sunday. So Wednesday night, I was at a ground colloquially known as the Arctic Circle, also known as Christie Park, with Northwest Sydney Spirit defeating Blacktown Spartans by 2-1. So Spirit's goals from the Roadrunner, Sophie Harding, as well as Talia Macri, and the Spartans' late consolation goal from everyone's favorite photographer's daughter, Abby Lemon. And on Thursday, I was calling the game between Apia Leichhardt and Football New South Wales Institute. Apia won 3-0, a double from Shay Connors. So she's actually joint top of the Golden Boot race with 9 goals for the season, and their other goal from Sophie Hoban, who was training with the Wanderers over the summer. And then on to Sunday's games, big win for Bankstown City, and an early goal from Siobhan Edwards decided it. They won 1-0 over MacArthur Rams. The league leaders, Northern Tigers, they completely grounded Emerging Jets, beating them 7-0. So a double from Ashley Brodigan, who's the other player at the top of the Golden Boot race, also has 9 goals. Then a double from Hannah McNulty, who does everything at Northern Tigers. She coaches one of the youth teams and is also their football administration manager, as well as being a very good player. Then the other 3 goals for the Tigers from Beth Bernardi, Maddie Butt, and Sienna Fraser. Absolute chaos at Cromer Park on Sydney's Northern Beaches. Manly United took a 2-goal lead through Caitlin Jarvie and Corinne Winkler. Then the aforementioned Sienna Silvesca, called up to the latest junior Matildas camp, scored 2 goals to bring it back to 2-0. Polly Doran, aka Posadoza, the best right back in the country, scored again to make it 3-2 to Manly United. And then Sienna Silvesca completed her hat trick after that. So, great, really entertaining game there. Sydney University stay in second place. 2 late goals for them to defeat Blacktown Spartans 2-0. Rolla Bardawia and Holly Caspers, who's having a great season off the back of her first A-League women's season, of course, with Canberra. Apia Leichhardt defeated Northwest Sydney Spirit by 3-1. So goals for Apia's goal, Sophie Hoban, a lovely left-footed strike from Leah Davidson, and an own goal. Spirit's goal came from Talia Macri. And the game I called on Sunday, a 0-0 draw between Sydney Olympic and Illawarra Stingrays. Jada Wyman saved a penalty from Michelle Carney, though, so that was good for her. And yes, that's football. That's NPL New South Wales.
Thanks, Eric. Did you leave anything for Dale to talk to?
I'd love Eric to describe how he described the Olympic versus the Olympic Illawarra game.
I'm going to get in trouble if I put that message public. But
no, it was one for the purists. Put it that way. Bankstown had a penalty. Missed a penalty late on against Rams as well. That could have been. I wouldn't go so far as to say a shock, but Rams are a very good team, and Bankstown traditionally have not been. But that would have been that's a big win for them. But very interesting to see Tigers just keep on rolling at this point. I think they've. If there were markets available, they would be far and away favourites to take out the comp at this point, which is good. Friend of the show, Nick.
Yes.
Nick Amies is their media guy. Lovely bloke.
Yes. good bloke. And the only thing he's worried about is young Matildas call-ups, potentially.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. At this point, it is going to be interesting going forward, obviously, as we mentioned last week, around the fact that Spartans have got so many players in the young Matildas setup that they may not have a club, like a women's program in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Madge, take us through Queensland's football results, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so we've had some Super Cup action in the quarterfinals. So Souths United beat Moreton Bay United in probably what's the most even matchup of the quarterfinals. So Lisa Gregson and Bella Habuda grabbed the goals for Souths, and Mia Green got the one goal from Moreton Bay United. Interesting, in the outside of the Southeast Queensland group, we had Clinton FC going down 7-1 to Edge Hill United. And just an interesting note there that Louise Fowler scored one of the goals for Edge Hill. So Mary Fowler's sister, I believe.
Oh, very nice.
So that is the Louise Fowler, not just.
Oh, look, I really think it is. I just did a really quick check, so I hope I'm not telling lies. But that's a nice little tidbit there, and we'll see them go into the semi-final, and I'm assuming that'll probably be down here in Southeast Queensland.
Mm-hmm.
So against whoever else gets through. So the other games left, the other two quarterfinals. Lions FC are taking on Olympic, which should be a game. But that's tomorrow, the 28th of June. So that will be at Lions Stadium. So I might see if I can actually get along to that one. That should be fun. And then the Sunshine Coast Warriors are taking on Gold Coast United as well. Then in the NPL action, we had Eastern Suburbs taking on Olympic. They won in a bit of a goal fest, 5-3, 2 goals to Zoe Lambie, Ono Goda, Sophie Person and Maya Bruckner for Eastern Suburbs, and Brittany Lasek, Innocent Michael and Rosie Sutton.
Rosie Sutton. Oh.
Rosie.
Rosie's still running around. Gold Coast United, I believe, I found the results for this one. They beat QAS 2-0 with goals to Bronte Rose and Deanna Thompson for the Gold Coast. Lions FC absolutely routed Moreton Bay United 7-1, and big ups for Tegan Thompson getting a double hat trick, 6 of those goals. So
she wears number 6. I was looking on the match center, so it's perfect.
Yeah, yep. And then Capalaba, I went to this game yesterday. Capalaba were really decimated. Well, one with losing Larissa Crummer, but a lot of illness. So they had, I think, a lot of their under 19s team playing up for this game against the Sunshine Coast Warriors. They went down 2-0. I don't take notes at the game though, so I'm not sure who the 2 goal scorers were for Sunshine Coast Warriors. So Wanderers, sorry. So I apologise for that. But yeah, it was an interesting game and a lot of back and forth. So, but a couple of really good goals from Sunshine Coast.
Yeah. You know who else doesn't take notes, Madge? Whoever uploaded the scores into the official website, because it has the score and no scorers.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. All right, quickly just through the football in Victoria as well, because everyone cares mostly about that, surely. Not really. We are sticking with positions on the ladder and making it nice and easy to predict the winner. Box Hill United, who are 6th on the table, went down 1-2 against Heidelberg United. Calder United had a 3-0 victory over South Melbourne. Bayside United went down 4-0 against Alamein. And then the match between the Bulleen Lions and FE Emerging looks like it was postponed, which I'm sure Eric knows about. I don't know. Did you postpone it for some reason, Eric?
What? Why would I postpone Monday Night Football? No, that was early. I was updating the show notes on Saturday and it was already postponed. I'm like, okay. Do you know if the Veneto Club is a grass surface? Because maybe something's happened, but I've got no idea.
It has been.
It's one of the synthetic?
It's synthetic.
Yeah. Okay, so that rules out one thing. One possible reason.
Memories of that ground, because there's been a couple of players who I've seen do ACLs on that turf, which is
so it's an old synthetic.
Okay.
But shout out to Harriet Withers getting on the score sheet for Calder United and Nia Stamatopoulos scoring for Alamein.
Nice. All right, Queens of the Week. Eric, kick off.
Sure. So my Queen of the Week, it's Glasgow's Glasgow City's Irish forward, former Republic of Ireland international Claire Shine. She recently released a book called Scoring Goals in the Dark. Claire has displayed incredible bravery and openness by discussing her battles with alcohol addiction, illicit drug use, and suicidal thoughts. In this past week, Claire celebrated a milestone, 2 years of sobriety. So more power to you, Claire. Wishing you all the best as you, and you're certainly an inspiration to other people going through a similar situation.
Nice. Madge, I think you've already given us a little insight into who your Queen of the Week is.
I mean, when someone scores 6 goals in a game, I mean, you can't go past that. So absolutely Tegan Thompson, 6 for number 6, and we can leave off the last 6 because that's nothing but beauty.
Thank you. Dale, does yours come from, well, no, I don't know. Where's yours come from?
I have 2, one Queen of the Week and one Unsure of the Week. My Queen of the Week is Victoria Aston for her efforts against Norway. It's one of the best goalkeeping performances in a Kiwi Ferns or Football Ferns jersey you're ever likely to see. And my nondescript royalty of the week is the dog that got on the pitch in the Chile versus Venezuela game.
How cute.
We love dogs.
Just want a belly
we
rub.
love football. Dogs on the pitch. More of this. There are actually NWSL clubs that have Bark at the Park, where you can bring your dog along to games. Portland Thorns is one of those. But yeah, that was adorable. So very well handled by the Chilean ground staff as well. That dog was very naughty, but very cute.
Such a
Still
fun
a
dog.
good dog, whether it's a boy or not, I'm not sure.
Oh God,
I did see a memory come up on Twitter, I think it was, about a certain kangaroo who was jumping around some game in Canberra, I think it was, which is a nice segue into your space, Stefan.
Deakin Stadium, yeah, that was a couple of years ago now, I think. Yeah.
Just wanted Travapi, that's why.
That's right, who doesn't? You guys are going to love my Queens of the Week for next couple of months. It's basically picked the latest Canberra United signing. So Emma Ilijoski is one of my Queens of the Week, but I was also going to nominate Victoria Essen for the same reasons that Dale mentioned. And I did want to mention too that although there's no Nordic action happening, Winonah Heatley has signed for NordZealand, who are a mid-table side in Denmark. So congratulations, Winnie. She played with Vecco in Sweden last season while they were still in the top league. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. I think someone wanted to mention Charlie Grant as well. A bit of a shout out to her. I've already got a couple of Queens of the Week, one of which Tegan Micah, I think for the first half that she was on the game, she played an absolutely terrific game. She made 3 big saves, which I think could have easily been goals and would have made the halftime scoreline quite a lot different. So Tiga, definitely a safe pair of hands and looking great in that starting goalkeeper position. The second one, Amy Chapman, congratulations to you. It looks like on Twitter you've announced the new addition, which will be coming to your family, a new bub, which has kept you off Twitter because maybe it is a bit challenging to get through some of that pregnancy. So congratulations to you on that one. And the third one's a bit of a Queen of the Week, but also a bit of a joker to Megan Rapinoe, who spent a lot of time talking about the recent announcement recent decision from the Supreme Court around Roe v. Wade. Extremely challenging situation, I think, for many people around the world, but maybe particularly women in the world. And I think she used the spotlight for good to talk to that. And it's just, so my thoughts are out there with people who are in the US and people who are impacted and affected by that. I don't want to get too political, but definitely tough times. Well, thank you, everyone, for being on, listening to our podcast, and also to the co-hosts who have been talking with me about football. It's always terrific. Next week, we'll be talking about more football and see how the Matildas went against Portugal, more international football results, and then super, super close to the Euros kicking off, as well as some Australian football happening as well. So thank you, everyone, and talk to you again soon.